In the freezing depths of early 1943, the Eastern Front was on the brink of collapse. Soviet offensives had shattered the German lines, threatening to encircle entire armies. Amid this chaos, the SS-Panzer Division Leibstandarte was rushed from France to Russia, arriving in the embattled Kharkov region. Through the eyes of Panzer Ace Rudolf von Ribbentrop, we delve into the brutal conditions, desperate maneuvers, and pivotal decisions that shaped the Kharkov counterattack. Join us as we unravel the story of one of World War II's most intense armored confrontations, where survival and strategy collided on the snowy battlefields of Ukraine. By February 1943, the German Eastern Front was on the verge of collapse. Following the disaster at Stalingrad, Soviet forces launched relentless offensives, aiming to destroy the remaining German field armies in southern Russia. At the center of this chaos lay Kharkov, a critical city now in the crosshairs of the advancing Red Army. To halt the Soviet onslaught, Field Marshal Erich von Manstein devised a bold strategy: a controlled withdrawal to stabilize the front and create the conditions for a counteroffensive. Central to this plan was the SS Panzer Corps, led by SS Oberstgruppenführer Paul Hauser. The SS Panzer Corps, comprising the elite divisions Leibstandarte Adolf Hitler, Das Reich, and Totenkopf, had been rushed to the Kharkov region just in time to face the Soviet Operation Star. This offensive aimed to capture Kursk and then strike south to take Kharkov, threatening to cut off all German forces in the south. Despite their ferocious resistance, the Grossdeutschland and Das Reich divisions, supported by the newly arrived SS divisions, could only slow the Soviet advance. Facing overwhelming numbers, they began a fighting withdrawal toward Kharkov to avoid encirclement. Then came Hitler's infamous order: Kharkov must be held at all costs. But Hauser, recognizing the disastrous implications of such a stand, made a bold decision. Defying Hitler's directive, he ordered his corps to abandon the city on February 16, 1943. Hauser's decision saved the SS Panzer Corps from destruction. These elite formations withdrew intact, preserving their combat strength for future operations. This strategic withdrawal not only averted disaster, but also set the stage for Manstein's counteroffensive just weeks later. Standing at the heart of these intense actions was SS First Lieutenant Rudolf von Ribbentrop, commander of the 1st Platoon, 6th Company, 2nd Battalion, 1st SS Panzer Regiment, leading his newly upgraded Panzer IV Model G with its enhanced 75mm L43 long-barreled gun. Ribbentrop was fortunate to survive after being struck by Russian bullets that took him out of action in early February. Despite this, he refused evacuation and remained with the battalion, determined to continue fighting. On March 1, 1943, Rudolf von Ribbentrop succeeded the fallen SS Lieutenant Alt as commander of the 7th Company, 1st SS Panzer Regiment. His appointment came at a critical juncture, as General Paul Hauser had launched the planned counterattack. Ribbentrop led his company as the spearhead, advancing rapidly toward the village of Vaki. Upon approaching the valley where Vaki lay, they spotted withdrawing Russian infantry. Ribbentrop quickly ordered his tanks to open fire, and the tanks unleashed their guns to prevent the Soviets from fortifying the village. Despite heavy fire, many Soviet troops managed to retreat into Vaki, potentially posing a threat to the 1st Battalion, which was attacking from the west. However, the 7th Company's swift actions significantly reduced the enemy's ability to reinforce the village, aiding the battalion's assault. The next day, the tanks advanced along the Vaki-Liubotyn road, encountering a Soviet anti-tank position. Ribbentrop ordered a coordinated assault with widely spaced tanks, which systematically destroyed the enemy defenses. Despite this, the Soviet resistance delayed the advance until the afternoon. Once cleared, the 7th Company resumed its lead role, continuing the attack. At the entrance to Liubotyn, the 7th Company encountered another Soviet anti-tank belt. The tanks silenced the guns with concentrated fire, again avoiding any losses. However, radio communication with the battalion was lost, likely due to the terrain. Rudolf von Ribbentrop recounted the scene. Through my field glasses, I observed the large extended village of Liubotyn, packed with Russian troops moving northeast, clearly evacuating. I debated advancing with my 3 tanks despite being out of high-explosive ammunition, a risky move. At that moment, SS Lieutenant Stollmeyer radioed Ribbentrop that SS Colonel Fritz Witt, commander of the 1st SS-Panzer Grenadier Regiment, was outside his tank. Colonel Witt, renowned for his courage, had driven forward in his staff car. Ribbentrop recalled, "When I looked out of the hatch, Colonel Witt said, 'Ribbentrop, we must have Liubotyn.' I informed him we were out of HE rounds. He replied dryly, 'That may be, but we must have Liubotyn.'" Accepting the order, Ribbentrop led a high-speed charge directly into the village. Speed was their only defense against Russian tank killer teams, and they exploited it fully, initiating a chaotic and daring assault into the heart of Liubotyn. As the tanks charged through the kilometer-long village of Liubotyn, an SS staff sergeant from the combat engineer platoon jumped onto Ribbentrop's tank. With no high-explosive ammunition left, the tanks fired armor-piercing rounds, ineffective against anti-tank guns. Ribbentrop recalled, "We rounded a curve and suddenly found ourselves 30 meters from a ready-to-fire Russian anti-tank gun. At that range, a hit would have been fatal, but the staff sergeant leapt from the tank, attacking the gun crew with hand grenades. After the first blast, the surviving gunners fled to a nearby house. That brave man, whose name I never learned, saved our lives." The tanks raced on, scattering Russian soldiers who fled in every direction. Near the village outskirts, they encountered a withdrawing Russian column. Ribbentrop halted to open fire, while SS Lieutenant Stollmeyer advanced, standing in his turret and shouting "Rookie Wirch," or "Hands up!" Most Russians surrendered or fled, but one charged Stollmeyer's tank. With his pistol empty, Stollmeyer hurled it at the soldier, forcing him to turn away. Moments later, a hand grenade exploded near the tank, wounding Stollmeyer in the cheek. As night fell, orders came to halt. In the distance, the sound of Russians recovering an abandoned tank echoed in the dark, signaling that the fight was not yet over. After resupplying with fuel and ammunition, Rudolf von Ribbentrop's company was tasked with advancing in a wide arc north of Kharkov, to the village of Dergachi. The march began amidst snowfall and under a pitch-black sky. With no adequate maps, the night became a nightmare. As the spearhead company, the responsibility was immense. Ribbentrop described the ordeal. While my radio operator sat inside, reading and drinking coffee, I stood in the open turret hatch, soaked and frozen, trying to navigate in the dark. The entire battalion was behind us, relying on us to be in position by morning for the next attack. The weight of that responsibility was overwhelming. Despite the challenging conditions, the company reached Dergachi during the night, linking up with the infantry under SS Major Max Hansen of the 2nd Battalion, 1st SS-Panzer Grenadier Regiment. The stage was set for the next phase of the offensive. At dawn, the Panzer Grenadiers prepared for their assault on Dergachi, but a disagreement arose between the battalion commander and the grenadier commander regarding tactics. The argument ended with Rudolf von Ribbentrop ordered to lead his tanks directly into the village along the narrow road, joining the grenadiers at the far end to secure the objective. Ribbentrop's unit, consisting of 3 or 4 tanks, advanced cautiously down the tight village road, passing fences on both sides. Russian infantry emerged through gaps, hurling grenades and firing rifles. Anti-tank rifle fire cracked against their armor, and a direct hit shattered the vision block in Ribbentrop's turret. Despite this, the tanks pushed forward, firing high-explosive rounds into fences to disrupt enemy positions and maintain morale. Suddenly, Ribbentrop's tank was hit. Realizing abandoning it meant certain death, he checked its systems, which remained operational. Over the radio, SS Lieutenant Stolmeyer revealed he had fired a high-explosive round to neutralize a Russian, attempting to ignite the tank with a Molotov cocktail. "You could have used the machine gun," Ribbentrop exclaimed. "It was jammed, and I had to act fast," Stolmeyer replied. Recognizing the vulnerability of unsupported tanks against infantry, Ribbentrop ordered, "Step on it. Stay close together. Each tank protect the others." The tanks raced through the village, breaking into a column of withdrawing Russian soldiers. The fleeing enemies scattered under fire, leaving the tanks to secure the area. The swift and decisive action ensured the capture of Dergachi, though not without close calls and tense moments. After capturing Dergachi, the unit quickly moved out into open fields to block retreating Russian forces from reaching their lines. As they positioned on a small hill, a platoon from the reconnaissance battalion, speeding in wide-tired Schwimmwagons, appeared and passed by toward the Kharkov-Belgorod road. They were on a reconnaissance mission and shared critical information about the 1st Battalion's situation, which Ribbentrop relayed to his commanding officer. The next target was Cherkaskije. The village was swiftly overrun, with enemy troops blasted out and fleeing in panic. Advancing further, the unit reached the Kharkov-Belgorod road, cutting off the enemy's retreat. Turning south, they destroyed several enemy tanks attempting to escape toward Kharkov, with 2 confirmed kills attributed to Ribbentrop. By nightfall, the unit reached Kharkov airfield and set up positions, resting inside their tanks. However, the calm was interrupted by a sudden appearance of enemy tanks. These tanks fired chaotically in all directions before vanishing as quickly as they had come, adding an eerie tension to the night. The next morning, our company advanced in support of the Grenadier Regiment's assault on Kharkov. Progress was steady until the Grenadiers encountered dug-in T-34 tanks in the blocks of houses ahead, halting the advance. Despite artillery fire targeting the positions, we knew only direct hits could neutralize these entrenched tanks. Then, one of the first Tiger tanks deployed to the Eastern Front appeared, tasked with eliminating the T-34s. The massive tank sped past us, stopping roughly 200 meters ahead. Its long 88mm gun unleashed devastating fire, each shot followed almost instantaneously by the sound of impact. This pattern, advance, fire, halt, was repeated multiple times. However, the Tiger's assault came to an abrupt end. A shot struck the gun mantlet, disabling its main gun and forcing the tank to retreat. As it reversed back to our position, its commander, wounded and visibly shaken, reported that the hit had killed the gunner and severely injured his own leg. While we assessed the situation, SS Colonel Fritz would emerge through the chaos, leaping from cover to cover amid heavy artillery fire. He remained calm and approached with his operations officer, joking that the Russian shelling had given him a workout. His presence on the front line, braving enemy fire, inspired the men. Witt's extraordinary leadership stood out. His calm demeanor, personal bravery, and careful planning earned him the unwavering trust of his regiment. His soldiers knew that he never took unnecessary risks, and his measured command brought success even in the most harrowing conditions. By late afternoon, the tide began to turn as the 2nd Battalion of the 1st SS-Panzer Grenadier Regiment, led by SS Major Hansen, launched their attack. Their advance weakened the Russian defenses, allowing the Grenadiers to push into the first blocks of houses. We were ordered to follow and escort them to Red Square. As we moved at high speed into the city, we encountered a barricade formed by an abandoned KV-1 tank. While the Grenadiers bypassed the obstacle, my crew and I exited our tank to attach a tow cable and clear the road. As soon as the path was open, Stollmeyer, commanding the 2nd tank, sped ahead to support the Grenadiers. Before he left, I called out, "Be careful!" Stollmeyer had always been a daredevil. Despite a swollen cheek from a grenade fragment, he refused medical treatment to stay with his unit. But the danger he faced became clear when an anti-tank round whistled past us moments later. As we rounded the next curve, we were met with a tragic sight: Stollmeyer's tank in flames. His surviving crew reported that he had encountered another barricade, this one defended by a T-34. While adjusting his gunner's aim, a fatal round struck the turret, killing everyone inside. The tank burned completely. The next day, after securing Red Square, we found Stollmeyer's charred remains, identifiable only by the remnants of his headset. We spent that freezing night in houses at the north end of Red Square, mourning our comrade and bracing for the battles yet to come. The next morning, we supported the Grenadiers as they methodically cleared the remaining blocks of houses. Russian resistance persisted, with defenders entrenched in upper floors, but the coordinated efforts of tanks and infantry ultimately silenced them. I ordered my crew to stay inside the tank, after SS Sergeant Killat was wounded by fragments while looking outside. By evening, Russian resistance crumbled, and Kharkov was finally captured. However, the fight wasn't over. The following day, we were tasked with clearing a large collective farm east of the city. Snipers in apartment buildings, houses, and silos inflicted further casualties, including the death of another gunner who was shot after opening his hatch to speak with the Grenadiers. Von Ribbentrop's diary highlights the critical role tanks played in urban combat during the recapture of Kharkov. Though far removed from the deep penetration raids envisioned by panzer pioneers like Heinz Guderian, these operations demonstrated tanks' adaptability in providing vital infantry support. Despite their limited numbers, the tanks proved decisive in breaking resistance, underscoring their versatility and the evolving nature of armored warfare. On March 17th, battle grew Piper, with the 3rd Armored Battalion of the 2nd SS-Panzer Grenadier Regiment and the 7th Company 1st SS-Panzer Regiment under SS First Lieutenant von Ribbentrop resumed the attack north toward Belgorod. The journey was slowed by poor roads, and as night fell, they encountered a Soviet anti-tank position. Piper's battalion, supported by von Ribbentrop's tanks, broke through the defenses, securing the line for the night. The mission for March 19th was to secure the area north of Belgorod, with further orders on March 20th to reinforce positions at Mikojanoka. At Strzelecko von Ribbentrop's company, along with 2 Tiger tanks, engaged Soviet forces, destroying 7 tanks with no losses of their own. However, the bridge in Strzelecko had been destroyed, forcing the battalion to withdraw to the town's eastern section for the night. Von Ribbentrop recounts the battle north of Belgorod, where Piper's Grenadiers, supported by his tanks, executed a precision attack against Soviet anti-tank defenses. Upon cresting a hill, they encountered a well-prepared anti-tank belt on the village outskirts. As the grenadiers advanced in a zigzag pattern, smoke rounds provided cover but hindered the tank's visibility. Despite the challenges, Ribbentrop's tanks silenced the defenses within minutes by advancing through the smoke and firing on sight. The teamwork between tanks and grenadiers was critical. A Panzer Grenadier officer remarked that the sound of the tanks firing provided immense reassurance during such operations. After breaking through to Belgorod, Ribbentrop's unit spent the night in their tanks, while grenadiers braved the cold in makeshift snow shelters. The next morning, under the protection of 3 Bf-110 close support aircraft, they advanced north with minimal opposition. The advance passed through a village, revealing abandoned T-34s in what appeared to be a Russian tank repair facility. The lead tank under von Ribbentrop destroyed an enemy tank upon entering the village, and his company engaged several other targets with precision, maintaining their momentum toward Belgorod. While von Ribbentrop's group moved ahead, following units encountered leftover T-34s, leading to intense skirmishes. The delay highlighted the lingering threat of Russian resistance despite the overall retreat. As von Ribbentrop's tanks reached Belgorod, they found the city abandoned, save for a lone Russian second lieutenant, whose truck drove directly into the waiting guns of Piper's personnel carriers. From the heights above the Donets, Piper's forces observed Soviet columns withdrawing northward. Although their long-range fire had little impact, it nonetheless contributed to hastening the Russian retreat. In the afternoon, Piper's battle group was tasked with a relief operation for Panzer Grenadier Division Grossdeutschland. SS Lieutenant Eckhard destroyed 3 camouflage T-34 tanks that had been positioned as a flanking defense for the retreating Soviet forces. The next morning, Piper's group advanced north from Belgorod, with the armored personnel carriers and tank companies forming the advance guard. After advancing several kilometers, they encountered heavy artillery fire, resulting in 1 personnel carrier being set ablaze. Piper, assessing the situation, ordered a retreat to the reverse slope to minimize further losses. Rudolf von Ribbentrop, seeing an opportunity to assist, volunteered to inspect the destroyed personnel carrier for survivors. Despite facing potential artillery fire, he managed to approach the smoldering wreckage without detection. Unfortunately, he found no survivors, only remnants of uniforms, paybooks, and dog tags. Piper, although saddened by the loss, appreciated Ribbentrop's efforts in confirming the fate of the crew. After returning to Kharkov, von Ribbentrop was unexpectedly transferred to the tank regiment as its adjutant. Although the promotion brought recognition, he was reluctant to leave the 7th Company, with which he had forged a close bond. Despite his objections, the transfer went ahead. For his actions during the fighting in the Kharkov area, von Ribbentrop was awarded the Iron Cross First Class and the Wound Badge in Silver, his 3rd wound. In his book, The Knight's Cross Recipients of the Waffen-SS, Ernst Gunnar Kretschmer praised the 2 SS Panzer Corps' victory as the last major German success on the Eastern Front. This success was attributed to the outstanding tactical leadership of General Paul Hauser, who took the bold decision to evacuate Kharkov, despite Hitler's orders to hold it at all costs. Hauser's actions preserved 3 of the best German divisions, and allowed them to decisively defeat the Soviets in the battle between the Donets and the Dnieper. The victory helped return Kharkov to German control and laid the groundwork for Field Marshal von Manstein's subsequent operations.